Espionage and betrayal during the Cold War era were more than just cloak-and-dagger tales. They were realities that shaped global politics. Shadowy figures maneuvered behind the scenes, orchestrating moves that could tilt the balance of power. This video brings to light 5 spies and spy rings whose actions rippled through history. In this video, you will find a spy that stands out for an act of betrayal so profound it resulted in the execution of numerous American agents. Be sure to stick around and watch them all. Let's dive into it. Number 1. Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. Our list begins with the married New Yorkers and devoted communists. They were central to a significant Cold War espionage case. After Ethel's high school graduation in 1931 and Julius's electrical engineering degree in 1939, they joined the Communist Party of the United States of America, the CPUSA. Julius's role as a civilian engineer with the U.S. Army Signal Corps in 1940 set the stage for their espionage activities, involving the disclosure of U.S. military secrets to the Soviet Union. Crucial to their operation was Ethel's brother, David Greenglass, a machinist on the Manhattan Project, who provided them with data on nuclear weapons. This information was passed to the Soviets through a courier network. The couple's espionage activities were exposed when Julius was discharged from the army in 1945 for lying about his Communist Party membership. Their arrest followed the apprehension of Harry Gold, linked to British spy Klaus Fuchs, in 1950. Charged with conspiracy to commit espionage, the Rosenbergs were tried in 1951, found guilty, and sentenced to death. Despite worldwide appeals and multiple legal challenges, they were executed in 1953 at Sing Sing Prison, New York, becoming the first American civilians executed for espionage. Number 2. Klaus Fuchs. Our second one in the list was a significant figure in Cold War espionage and had a complex and pivotal history. Born to a Lutheran pastor and a professor of theology, he initially joined the Social Democratic Party of Germany, but was expelled in 1932. Following the 1933 Reichstag fire, Klaus, fearing persecution due to his political views, fled Germany for the United Kingdom. There he continued his academic pursuits, earning a PhD from the University of Bristol and later a DSc from the University of Edinburgh, while working as an assistant to physicist Max Born. During World War II, Klaus was briefly interned, but was soon released to contribute to the British atomic bomb project, known as tube alloys. By 1943, he had moved to the United States to work on the Manhattan Project at Los Alamos, where he gained extensive knowledge about the atomic bomb. His role was crucial, particularly in the development of the plutonium bomb. Following the war, he returned to the UK and headed the physics department at the British Nuclear Research Centre at Harwell. Klaus's espionage activities began in earnest when he realized the significance of his research. He started passing atomic secrets to the Soviet Union in 1943, an act that significantly aided their atomic program. His espionage is credited with saving the Soviets at least 1 year's work in developing their own atomic bomb. In 1950, Fuchs' activities were detected, leading to his arrest. He confessed to passing information to the Soviets in 1942, was tried and sentenced to 14 years in prison. After serving 9 years and being released for good behavior, Fuchs moved to East Germany, where he resumed his career as a physicist and received numerous honors from the East German Communist Party. Number 3. Ray Mawby. The list continues with Ray Mawby, originally an electrician by trade. He began his political career through his involvement with trade unionism. He was an official in the Rugby branch of the Electrical Trades Union and later became the first president of the Conservative Trade Unionists National Advisory Committee. Mawby transitioned to a more direct political role as a Rugby Borough councillor in 1952 and was elected as the Member of Parliament for Totnes in 1955, a position he held until 1983. During his time in the House of Commons, he was known for championing traditional British values and served as Assistant Postmaster General from 1963 to 1964. Notably, Mawby actively campaigned against legalizing male homosexual acts. However, Mawby's public persona as a staunch conservative and anti-communist contrasted sharply with his covert activities. In 2012, a dozen years after his death, a BBC reporter uncovered files revealing that Mawby had been a spy for Czechoslovakia, then a part of the Soviet bloc, during the Cold War. Codenamed Laval, he began handing over intelligence soon after being approached by Czech agents at a cocktail party in November 1960. Lacking access to classified information, Mawby provided political gossip, including details of a confidential investigation into a Conservative Party colleague. He also supplied floor plans of the Prime Minister's office in the House of Commons and information about the Prime Minister's security team. For each piece of intelligence, Mawby received £100, a sum which, according to his handlers, went towards his drinking and gambling habits. The payments eventually increased to £400 per year. Mawby's engagement with his handlers was frequent at first, sometimes meeting several times a month, but this decreased over time and ended completely in 1971. Number 4. Cambridge 5. And we continue with the Cambridge Five, a notorious spy ring composed of Donald MacLean, Guy Burgess, Kim Philby, Anthony Blunt, and John Cairncross. Recruited by the NKVD, which is a Soviet Union security agency, during their education at the University of Cambridge in the 1930s, they were influenced by Marxism-Leninism and believed Soviet communism was the best defense against fascism. All 5 pursued successful careers within various branches of the British government and passed large quantities of intelligence to the Soviets, so much so that the KGB became suspicious of its authenticity. The group's slow unmasking had a demoralizing effect on the British establishment and caused mistrust in British security by the United States. The public became aware of the conspiracy in 1951. After MacLean and Burgess suddenly fled to the Soviet Union, suspicion fell on Philby, who eventually defected to the Soviet Union in 1963. British intelligence later obtained confessions from Blunt and Cairncross, but their involvement was kept secret for many years. Philby, after defecting, lived under virtual house arrest in Moscow for 7 years, as the Soviets were concerned he might defect back to the West. He was given no official rank or office, and his life in Moscow was largely marginalized until his death, after which he was posthumously awarded several medals by the Soviets. The Cambridge Five's espionage activities were highly effective, but also complex and layered with distrust and paranoia, both from their Soviet handlers and within the British intelligence community. Their story represents one of the most significant and intriguing episodes of Cold War espionage. Number 5. Aldrich Ames. And then here is the world of Aldrich Ames, a man whose price for loyalty cost lives. Aldrich Hazen Ames began his career in the CIA in the early 1960s, initially without intentions for a long-term career. Despite several alcohol-related brushes with the law, Ames advanced within the agency, completing a bachelor's degree in history and joining the career trainee program. By 1969, he had married a fellow CIA officer, Nancy Segbarth. Ames's career saw him working primarily in Soviet East European operations. He was noted for his generally enthusiastic performance, but was also marked by excessive drinking. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, Ames handled important Soviet assets and was ranked above most officers of his pay grade, despite committing significant security violations. In 1983, he was reassigned to the SE Division in Washington, which placed him in a highly sensitive element of the Department of Operations responsible for Soviet counterintelligence. Financial difficulties arising from a divorce and heavy spending by his new wife, Rosario Casas Dupuy, led Ames to consider espionage for monetary gain. In 1985, Ames began spying for the Soviet Union, initially providing what he believed to be valueless information to establish his credentials as a CIA insider, in exchange for $50,000 from the Soviets. Ames's espionage was devastatingly effective. He compromised a large number of CIA assets, leading to the execution of at least 10 sources.
I gave the names of our agents in the Soviet Union, that I was exposing them to the full machinery, counter-espionage and the law and prosecution and capital punishment, certainly in the case of KGB and GRU officers.
He received a total of $4.6 million from the Soviets, which funded an extravagant lifestyle well beyond a typical CIA officer's means. In 1993, the CIA and FBI began an intensive investigation into Ames. He was kept under constant surveillance until his arrest on February 21, 1994, during which Ames claimed a case of mistaken identity. Charged with spying for the Soviet Union and Russia, Ames pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. His wife received a 5-year prison sentence as part of a plea bargain. If these stories from the Cold War era captured your interest, be sure to keep watching us for more compelling historical narratives. Share your thoughts in the comments about which spy stories you found most fascinating.